Hello! Happy day to you. I am Juliet, and I am going to be walking you through Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Act II. William was sorry that he couldn't stick around to read with you the rest of the play, so he called me to come in his place for this next act. We're going to start with the prologue of Act II. Now, the prologue of Act II, similar to the prologue of Act I, is a perfect Shakespearean sonnet. And what it does is it gives us an introduction to what will be happening in the next few scenes of the play so that we as the audience don't miss anything. So what I would like to do is I would like to read through the prologue with you and go through it line by line to make sure that you are understanding what it is saying so that we understand the action that is going to occur within the scenes of Act II. So here we go, if you would follow along with me, please. Now old desire doth in his deathbed lie. What this is saying is old love is now dead, okay? Old love lies in his deathbed. And young affection gapes to be his heir. So there's a new affection, a new love that is taking the place, is the heir of the old love. That fair for which love groaned for and would die, with tender Juliet matched, is now not fair. What this is saying is that I, Juliet, make Romeo's old love, Rosaline, look ugly. Of course I do. Now Romeo is beloved and he loves again, so Romeo's in love again, of course with me, alike bewitched by the charms of looks, so he's bewitched by my looks. But to his foe supposed he must complain, and she still loves sweet bait from fearful hooks. Being held a foe, he may not have access to breathe such vows as lovers used to swear. So this is saying, because I am a Capulet and not a Montague like Romeo is, he's not allowed to express openly his affection for me. So he may not have access to breathe vows as lovers used to swear. He doesn't have access, he's not allowed to openly tell me sweet lovers' words in public. And she, meaning me, as much in love, her means much less to meet her new beloved anywhere. So this is saying I have much less means, I am much less able to meet Romeo and express my affection for him. And this is because I am a woman. And during this time period, women had very few freedoms. So I am not free to express my love because I am a woman and because women were not allowed to roam around the streets as men were during this time period. I had to be escorted by someone anywhere that I went. Usually it was by my nurse or a servant or the likes. So my means are much less than Romeo's to express my love even. But passion lends them power, time's means to meet, tempering extremities with extreme sweet. So our passion, our love, is going to help us have the power to meet each other despite our circumstances. So we are going to end up meeting in this next act. We are now going to move on to scene 1. Now, just to kind of recap what happened at the end of Act 1, Romeo had crashed the Capulet party, and there he had met me and forgot all about his old love, Rosaline. So what's going to happen is in this first scene is that Romeo and his friends Mercutio and Benvolio are leaving the Capulet party. Now what you're going to notice is that Romeo has gone off by himself. He has kind of strayed away from Benvolio and Mercutio. So he is wandering by himself alone, and Benvolio and Mercutio are looking for him. And they are going to be talking about why Romeo is acting the way that he's acting. Now keep in mind, Mercutio and Benvolio do not yet know that Romeo has met me. So they are unaware that Romeo has completely forgotten about Rosaline. They think that he is still quite head over heels in love with Rosaline. So what I would like you to do now is please pause me and read scene 1 all the way through, all the way to the end. Wonderful. You've read scene 1 of Act 2. Let's talk about what happened. So first we see Romeo enter by himself and he asks the question, can I go forward when my heart is here? Turn back, dull earth, and find thy center out. He's saying, how can I leave the Capulet place when my heart, my love, Juliet, is still here. And so he turns back, right? And then we see he climbs the wall, and notice that the scene is set in a lane by the wall of the Capulet orchard. So what Romeo does here is he actually climbs over the wall into the Capulet property. And then we see Benvolio and Mercutio enter, and of course they have no idea where Romeo has gone, and so they start talking about Romeo and trying to call him to them. And Mercutio, he starts to go on all of these tangents. You know, remember, he's a dreamer and he likes to ramble about different things, and he likes to make a lot of jokes. So he starts doing all of these things in an attempt to draw Romeo out from wherever he's hiding, but none of it works. And Mercutio on line 8 has this whole long tangent where he's like, I'll conjure him, right? I'll try to bring him out of hiding with a spell. And then he starts to get really silly and go off on one of his rampages where he's like, oh, come to me, Romeo. I'm summoning you by love and a dove. And he's trying to do all this rhymes, and he's making a lot of jokes about Cupid and Cupid's arrow. And he says, I'll conjure thee by Rosalind's bright eyes. So he's kind of making fun of Romeo here, and Benvolio says on line 24, and if he hear thee, thou wilt anger him. So Benvolio is like, Mercutio, if he hears you right now, he's going to be very angry because you're poking fun at his love, right? But Mercutio still carries on. He makes a couple of dirty jokes, which are very inappropriate, and we're not going to discuss them. And Benvolio finally is able to convince Mercutio to come away. He says, go then, for 'tis in vain to seek him here that means not to be found. Benvolio says, Romeo obviously wants to be left alone. Let's just leave. And so they leave. Now in scene 2, we're going to see Romeo in Capulet's orchard. So he is in the premises of the Capulet property, right? And the Capulet property is very big because the Capulets are very wealthy individuals. So Romeo is just wandering around this property in the hopes that he may stumble across Juliet. And we are going to see that he indeed does stumble across me, Juliet. Okay, and he's going to be, now remember, Romeo is down in the orchard somewhere. There's a lot of trees, a lot of shrubbery. And what he's going to do is he's going to see Juliet up on a balcony, right? This is the balcony scene, and it is one of the most famous scenes in the play. So it's a very important scene where a lot of information is going to come to light, and some things are going to happen. So make sure you're paying very close attention. So Romeo is going to enter, he's going to be wandering around, and all of a sudden he's going to see Juliet up on a balcony. But keep this in mind, she cannot see him, okay? It is dark out, she is way up above, and he's way down below, hiding in the bushes, kind of spying on her. It's a little bit creepy if you think about it, but it's done from a place of love, and it did capture my heart. So I would like you to please pause the video now and read scene 2 to line 25. So the start of scene 2, we see Romeo saying this line, he just set scars that never felt a wound. And in this line, he is talking about Mercutio. He was able to hear everything Mercutio is saying, and he says he's laughing at scars, so at scars that never felt a wound, so he's laughing at things that he doesn't understand, right? So he's a little bit upset by what Mercutio is saying. But then as he wanders, we see enter Juliet above at a window. And Romeo says, one of the most famous lines in the play, but soft, what light through yonder window breaks, it is the east, and Juliet is the sun. So here we have a simile comparing myself to the sun, right? Saying that I'm glowing, I'm shining through the darkness. And he says, arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon who is already sick and pale with grief. So he's saying, come out and kill the envious moon, right? The sun arises and then the moon falls, and basically he's just saying that I am very beautiful through all of these things. And on line 10 he says, oh, it is my love, oh, that she knew she were. So he's saying, there she is, the woman I love. I wish that she knew that I loved her. And he continues on to talk about how beautiful I am. He says on line 15, two of the fairest stars in all the heaven, having some business, do entreat her eyes to twinkle in their spheres. So he's comparing my eyes to stars and how they twinkle, right? And he talks about my cheeks and how they are also bright as daylight doth a lamp. And the birds would sing and think it were not night. So he's talking about birds. And then he says this line. See how she leans her cheek upon her hand. So I'm going like this on the balcony. Right? I'm leaning my cheek upon my hand. Oh, that I were a glove on that hand, that I may touch that cheek. So Romeo here is wishing that he was a glove on my hand so that he may caress my cheek, because I'm resting my hand on my cheek, right? And then I speak, and I speak in a sigh. I say, I me. Okay, so I'm very distraught in the scene because I have just fallen madly in love with Romeo myself, but he does not yet know that. So Romeo can hear me, right? But I cannot yet hear anything that he is saying. So Romeo says, she speaks, oh speak again. So he's entreating me to speak, and then I do on line 35. And I realize you have not read this yet. So why don't we go ahead and pause the video, and you're going to hear me speak, and I'm going to be kind of expressing some of my feelings here. So I would like you to pause and read to line 51. So in this section, Romeo does entreat me to speak, right? He says, speak again, bright angel. And I do. And when I do start to speak on line 35, I say, O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Right? I'm saying, Romeo, where are you? Okay, so he hears his name, and you have to imagine that this gets him very excited, that his name is coming from my lips. And then I say this. Deny thy father and refuse thy name. I'm saying disown your family, right? Deny your father, disown them, and refuse thy name. Cast off your Montague name. Or, if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. So she's saying either you disown your family, or I will disown mine, right? And Romeo, as an aside, remember an aside is something that is said without the characters in the scene being able to hear. It's something that's only meant for the audience to be able to hear. It's kind of the character's inmost thoughts. So Romeo, as an aside, says, shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this? So he's like, oh, should I talk and let her know I'm here, or should I continue to listen and see what else she says? Well, he does continue to listen for a little bit, and I say, I have this very famous soliloquy here where I'm talking about names, okay? And I say, 'tis but thy name that is my enemy. So I'm saying Romeo isn't my enemy, it's his name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague. What's Montague? Okay, it's not nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name. So I am here wishing that Romeo were called by another name. And here again, we have a very famous line in this scene. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called. So here I am saying, if you have a rose and you call it something other than a rose, if you call it a fiddle, it would still smell like a rose, right? Calling it a fiddle rather than a rose doesn't actually change what it is. Just like if Romeo were to change his name, it wouldn't change who he is. He would still be the man that Juliet loves. He would just have a different name, and they would be able to freely live together. So she's saying all of this, she's very distraught, wishing that Romeo were not a Montague or she were not a Capulet, so that they could be freely in love with one another. And Romeo hears this entire thing. And that's where we're going to pause for today. If you're enjoying this guided study, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, The Bear Bodkin Bard, so that you can be updated on all future posts of all Shakespeare's greatest works. And if you would like the next video, the link is in the description below. I bid you a good day.